This is Make It Mentionable. I'm Alyssa Patness, and this is the show about being human in a world that encourages us to be robots. I invite you to join me as we journey through the mess, the magic, and the mania in between, because what we can talk about, we can manage. This honest conversation extravaganza includes free-flowing conversations and high doses of vulnerability to remind you that you aren't alone. No topic is off limits, and episodes are designed to leave you smarter, aka more self-aware than when you came. I am so glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to Make It Mentionable. I am back on the couch with Geoff. And first, thank you for being here. I love when you join me.
I enjoy it.
So when Geoff comes on the show, I like it to be an episode where we go behind closed doors, because there are so many times where the natural tendency is to go out into this world, and to protect ourselves, we put on this facade and pretend like everything's okay. And sometimes it's not. And so anytime we can open and go behind closed doors and make that mentionable, I am here for it. And so as I was thinking about what we could talk about today, a question came to mind that I think many people end up being plagued with. And that question is, should this be so hard? Or the flip side of that can be dreaming up, I bet there's a relationship out there where this is easier. And both of us have found ourselves in relationships where that question has come up. And so what was it like for you where were you at when that question started to creep in the past?
Well, I've had it in multiple relationships. And I mean, I remember this question coming up for me early on, and I've gone through a bit of an evolution in how I've thought about that. I know when I was younger, I kind of believed it shouldn't be that hard. And if it's this hard, it's probably not meant to be. There's something about it that isn't right, because if two people that love each other, that are committed and both want the same thing, are together, of course it's not going to be complete smooth sailing, but it shouldn't be really hard. And if it is, that's a sign that maybe this isn't the right one. Yeah. I've since evolved into a more nuanced way of thinking, and a better understanding that at times it can be really hard, even with the right person, even with the person that I believe makes sense for me to be with long term. There's going to be times where it seems really hard, and that's okay, and that's natural, and that doesn't mean what I used to think it meant.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And I had a similar path with that question, but I think there are two things I want to highlight here. First is I want to normalize the fact that our relationship in general, chasing happiness, is an illusion. Life is about the ups and the downs, and our ability to bounce back from the downs, and our ability to sit with them, and our resilience to know that it will pass, and we're going to get to feel the good stuff again at some point. And so I think when we put pressure on a relationship to have to be happy 100% of the time, one, I think that indicates that there's something going on internally that probably needs to be examined in some way, but also that's so much pressure to put on a relationship.
It is. And even not 100%, because I don't think anyone's going to claim it's supposed to be 100%, but I think we do strive in some ways for 100 or close to 100. And I think for me, there was a period of growing up and understanding that's not what it's about. It's not about being happy all the time. That's an illusion. Being human is experiencing the full range of emotions, and we can experience happiness and joy only in the contrast to sometimes when we don't have that. Yeah. So for me, that brings some peace to listen, we can't be happy all the time. We can't be in bliss all the time. There's going to be times where it's difficult and we're sad, and that's okay. And that's part of being human.
Yeah. And being in relationship is two people trying to translate their inner world to each other. And that is messy. That is so messy because all of your past experiences lead to you viewing the world one way, and my past experiences lead to me viewing the world a different way. And that's what's going on. So in every conversation, I'm filtering it my way, you're filtering it your way. And like, that's going to lead to messiness at times.
Absolutely. And tying back to the initial question, like, should it be this hard? Well, there's times based on how my history of 51 years and my experiences and what happened to me and is very different from yours. And so we often expect to be able to point to something and say, that's white or cream color or whatever. And we both agree. It's just objective. Like, this is right. This is wrong. How can you say that? Like, saying that to me is just wrong. You should never say that to me. Whereas I might be coming from a place of like, that's fine to say based on my experience. And so especially in communication and relationships, it's often not as black and white as we want it to be.
Right. Yeah. Chasing the black and white can get us into trouble. And so that leads me to the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is in asking that question. I think one of the most powerful things that we can do in a relationship and in life is to ask questions and to get better at asking better questions. Curiosity is fuel for connection. And so getting curious in these moments is what helps us unlock the next level of thinking. And the should in that initial question can be very problematic. Shoulds go hand in hand with shame. And they also don't give anything like purely objective to look at. Like, if we even look at this question, should it be this hard? Should according to what? There is a lot of relativity there. Like, should according to who? And as compared to what? And then our minds go on this race where we're basically like a hamster on a hamster wheel in our heads, and it's spinning so fast it could power an entire city. And so should is one of the like most common words for people to default to, especially in questions like it, and yet it's also one of the laziest forms of communication. It's so lazy.
And it assumes there is a right answer. And oftentimes there is not.
There is not. We want there to be right and wrong. We want it to be this easy yes or no. And that's not how it works from my experience. Yeah. And so going back to to this question of like, okay, well, if that question's piping up, we got to give it a voice, allow yourself to be like, okay, I'm seeing myself answering this question. And then I think it's an opportunity to, whenever a should comes up, I mean, like, shoulds are banned in our house for the most part. We don't use that word.
Yeah. And when I use it by accident, you let me know.
Yeah. And so I think it's an opportunity to then ask a better question. And I think that's a really compassionate thing to do in those moments for ourselves and for our partner. And so a better question might be, is this relationship meeting my needs? And before that question, an even better question is likely, what are my needs of this relationship right now? Because if those aren't being communicated, issues are going to come up. I firmly believe that communication goes more smoothly when we're congruent, when our actions and the things that we're saying are congruent, when they're in alignment, which is really to say when they match. That is a much more peaceful transfer of energy than when they're not. If I'm sitting here and I am telling you I love you, but I'm secretly questioning that, my behaviors are going to be influenced by that. And
I'm going to pick up on
and you're going to pick up on
the longer
them.
we're partners, the more I can notice a muscle movement or something completely subconscious.
Right. And so being able to be congruent with ourselves allows us to have better communication with a partner. unfortunately, a lot of times we lie to ourselves, and like, that's a reality of being human. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
We lie to ourselves to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Or we're not even aware we're lying to
Right.
ourselves because we're doing it out of protection. It feels right. Yeah.
And so really, if that question ever pipes up, one, I think it's a fairly normal question. And two, I think then, okay, the first question that we come up with is not always the best one. And it's not always the one that we should focus our attention on. There's so much power in our ability to choose where to put our attention. And so if that comes up, there's an opportunity to choose to put the attention elsewhere. And Albert Einstein has a quote that I'm totally going to butcher right now. But the gist of it is that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend the first 55 minutes looking for the right question. And it's because the right question or the question you're asking can help unlock a better answer. And so in this case, I think two questions that could really help and that could be good shifts are, what are my needs? What are my needs? And then, is this relationship meeting my needs? Because that opens up the potential for an actual dialogue. If we decide, okay, here are my needs in this relationship and what's not being met, then that's something I can go to you, for example, and say like, hey, this isn't being met right now, or I need this. Like, are you willing to help me meet this need?
Yeah, exactly.
And you get to say no.
And it starts a discussion. There's pieces of that. I might say like, that's a need you need to meet for yourself. So you got to work on this a little bit yourself. Or there's parts of that I can meet. And yes, I do want to meet that. Or maybe like, listen, I can't do that.
Right. And then I can have a choice of like, okay, can I meet this need myself? Or can I get this need met by a friend?
Right.
Or do I need you to meet it? And if I need you to meet it, then that leads to further conversation and negotiation. And I think these are the steps that are so easy to miss just in the hustle and bustle of life and in the human tendency that things just run under the surface without us always being aware of them.
Yeah. And that leads to the work that makes relationships work, as opposed to like, if you start with like, should it be this hard? No, it shouldn't. And maybe you're getting validation from your friends that say, oh no, it should not be that hard. It's kind of an easy, lazy way to say like, okay, this relationship has run its course, or this person's not right for me. Whereas the other questions lead you to getting into like, hey, what are my needs? How do I get them met with you, with your help, by myself? And that can take you lots of different directions. And it may end up that like, hey, we aren't right for each other, but you're going through a process there that isn't the lazy process of just saying like, this shouldn't be so hard. Like we're drawn to that as humans. Like it's an easy solution. Like it just shouldn't be this hard. I got to go find someone better.
Yeah. But should what? And I think that's also, people chase the perfect relationship a lot of times, but it's like, what is that? Like truly there's no answer for what that is. It's not going to feel perfect all the time. And then what? Like
I think there's a perfect answer to that. And that is, it comes back to your needs. Like what are my goals in a relationship? What are my needs that I need to have met in a relationship? That's what a good relationship looks like. That's not a definition of no conflict, easy all the time. Right.
Yeah.
So getting clear on what do I need? What do I give to myself? What do I get out of the relationship?
Yeah.
And, knowing that's what you can be striving for. So you can have a definition of a good relationship that you want to be in, and one that's satisfying and nurturing and a positive one to stay in.
Right. That's still not perfect.
No,
that's
it's not
definition
perfect.
of a good relationship.
Exactly. And by definition, it's not perfect. And the relationship won't be perfect, and it won't always be easy.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes we get stuck because we want someone to be the perfect partner for us. And so it becomes really easy to blame the other person when something isn't going right. It's just like, oh my gosh, if they would only do this, if they would only put the damn toothpaste cap on the toothpaste, everything would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And these little things can start to creep up. And really it has nothing to do with the toothpaste most of the time. It's something else underneath there. And then it becomes, we can fantasize and fall into this trap of, oh my God, if someone else was doing that, then like it would be fine and it would be okay. And it's so easy to put the answer outside of ourselves. And there's an equal process of having to look at what am I doing and what am I needing to learn from this? Or what am I not expressing right now? Or how am I not being honest with myself? I think we talk a lot about the balance between if you know something is a little bit rocky, when is the time to leave and when's the time to stay and to stay and be committed? And I think that can distort it some,
Yeah. And there's a magical shift in thinking, which is simple, but not easy. Mm-hmm. And it's what you were just talking about. Like, if only they would do this, if I could just get them to do this, if they would only see that when they say that, it triggers me this way. The shift of like, I need them to do something different to what does this teach me about me? What do I need to do? What is this pointing towards for me, for healing, or something I've got to resolve? And I believe that's the purpose of relationships. It's like, helps us bring up our shit, bring it to the surface and heal it. And it presses for completion and it comes out in relationships. So, but that's really hard. And when you're in the middle of it and someone's hurt you, to shift the focus from you need to do this different to what does this say for me? What need do I have that's not being met? What healing do I have to do? And it's not to say that we can't ask things of our partners and they can't improve, but that shift, this fundamental shift from like, they're not right for me, they're not doing what I need them to do, to what do I need to learn from this?
Right. Or what do I need to ask for? Because I think a lot of times we get scared to ask for what we want. And that's not the same across the board. Like, some people are really freaking great at articulating their needs. But I think sometimes our needs hide from us if we're not being conscious about like checking in with it. And so I think it's always good. Like, what am I needing? And checking in with that, and then being able to have a conversation around, are you capable of meeting this with me? Or do I need to get this met elsewhere? And then what does that mean? That's a very healthy process that I think gets skipped over a lot.
And most of us are coming from a place where we can't get in touch with our needs, or we don't feel entitled to them. Getting to the point where we say, I'm a human, I have needs, and they're okay, whatever they are. Now, you may not be able to meet them, you may not agree with them, but that doesn't invalidate them. And I need to be in touch with them. I need to own them, and I need to be able to express them, and I need to be able to pursue getting them met. That's the human condition.
And that is your birthright as a human. And yet so many of us to cling to love or to cling to safety and security, we abnegate. Is that the word that I'm thinking of?
I think so.
Okay. We abnegate ourselves and give up our birthright to have wants and needs. And I would add emotions to there too, because you're entitled to whatever emotion and whatever feeling comes up. And we have to practice being able to accept that of ourselves and of other people. What I find though, is over and over again, when we get to the next layer of accepting that we have needs, of accepting that I have needs and that I have emotions, and that is my birthright and I'm entitled to my desires and preferences, the more I'm able to allow that from you as well, without it feeling like a threat. And the whole thing about relationships is that it's translating our inner world to someone else. And we have completely different ways of constructing our inner world. For example, like I could say the word bulldoze and If I carelessly, just without thinking about it, was like, you're bulldozing me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can think, like, I have no association to that word in my past. It's just a word, and I'm using it to get a point across. For him, that word holds so much weight, and to the point where it's not okay to use, because and, go ahead.
Well, in the moment, and the first time you did it, like, yeah, like, and this brings up a point, like, what do we do when that happens? When one of us triggers the other? Maybe it wasn't okay to use. But my goal, this is back to like, I need to do the work to release the emotion around that word to make it safer to use, so that I don't get so triggered and it doesn't carry so much weight with me.
Yes, that would, like doing the work to release the emotional weight of the word is great. And back to the original point of like, we have very different understandings of that word to begin with. For you, it holds a ton of weight based on past experiences. For me, I'm like, it's just a word. And so the process of being in a relationship is translating our inner world to the other person and them doing the same thing back. And there's the abyss in between, and communication skills help us build a bridge, but it's messy. It's a very messy process at times. And so acknowledging that and having the space for it to be messy sometimes, I think, opens up so much freedom and gives us a better mindset for when things come up and when things are tougher. If we know that sometimes it's going to be messy, we have less resistance to the times when it happens.
Yes. And the growth and the healing is in the mess.
Yes.
And so we kind of know this is like, yeah, of course, like that's where we grow when it's hard. But we also have this part of us, this human part of us, that's like, I don't want that. So I'm going to avoid that at all costs. And I want this mythical relationship where it's not messy and it's not difficult and there's no conflict, or we want to keep that to an absolute minimum. But that's really not where the benefits of the relationship lie.
Right. Well, and yes, like, and we get this mythical dream world of like, oh, maybe there's a place where I don't have to deal with these things.
Yes.
But what we're running from in that situation is from ourselves, like most of the time, because a relationship is usually pressing on something that like we need to address in us. Yeah. So if you were all of a sudden like bulldoze isn't that strong a word for you, but if it was such a strong word that you're like, I have to run from this. It's like, how dare you say that to me? I have to run from this. There is someone else out there who would never say that to me. Like, who are you to do that? Then it becomes, okay, I'm going to run to the next person and we'll see. And then something else will come up. Like we repeat patterns until we learn the lesson many times.
They press for completion. And I thought for a long time, like just finding the right person or that you can kind of like find someone that doesn't trigger me and is nicer to me and all of those things. And the reality I've come to realize, like, no, these things are going to press for completion. They're going to come up until they're dealt with. And we're battling, like, unfortunately or fortunately, like nature has a way of bringing people together. Yeah. And the hormones that come from the honeymoon period and new relationships, like there are periods of a relationship that it does seem super easy and there's no issues and there's no conflict. And, you know, I found myself taking pride in being in a relationship for a year. We've never fought. Like the way that I view that now is like, that's insane. Like, fight early and figure it out and get going on your journey towards
fight well.
Yes. But we do go through these periods where things seem so perfect and so easy. And then we're able to like call on that and say, like, it shouldn't be this hard. I remember when it was easy. And the reality is that's a short term.
Well, the reality of the honeymoon period for a lot of people is exactly how we started the show, where how can I put on the absolute best version of myself so that I can attract the person that I want. And when we do that, and when we don't show the full version, then like past the honeymoon period, those things start to come up. And we can't maintain that facade that we had at the beginning for the duration of the relationship. That's a complete loss of our soul. And so things will come up that get triggered. And that's when the conflict comes out. And so, I mean, like you and I tried to tackle those things like very much from the beginning around where is the conflict and how are we going to handle it? And truly what comes up from you. I mean, so many people ask the most casual questions on first dates that don't give you any information about who the other person is and how they handle life. And that's what you really need to know. Like, you don't need to know their favorite coffee. It might be fun to know. You can surprise them with it, but that's not the question that's going to help you get to the person who you're deciding if you want to commit to them or not. And that comes back to asking better questions.
And trying not to fool ourselves. Like in some ways we date in a way that we're consciously trying to fool ourselves, or maybe it's subconscious, but it's like, I only want to see the best things in you. And I only want to show the best things in me. And we're willing to put off like having the tough conversations or getting into fights or conflict, or, asking really deep questions about how do you think about things? How do you deal? How do you fight? And I used to do that and put on the rose-colored glasses and try to keep them on as long as possible. But like with us, like I shifted that. It's like, no, like I want to see the shit. I want to see it soon. Cause if it's not a fit, if it's not compatible, I want to know now or yesterday, so I can move on, not 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or God forbid. Yeah. You're because you get to a point where you're pot committed, and then you start to realize like, oh shit, we view this very differently, or we don't fight in the same way. Or I don't respect this person's views on something. And then we're stuck. And
well, we feel ourselves as stuck, and it gets harder to make that decision around what we're going to do because there's more invested in it. And so knowing these things from the beginning, and it comes back to the type of questions that you ask, the type of questions that we ask ourselves to get information about what we really need and what we really, really want. And then questions we ask the other person to see if that's in alignment and if that works. I feel like you have some of these off the top of your head.
The kind of questions?
Yeah. Like, what's a better question than just like, oh my gosh, what's your favorite movie on a date?
Well, I think giving opportunities, like being vulnerable, like getting to vulnerability, like, because that's when the good shit comes out, because people can guard against it. People can guard. So for me, it's like getting really vulnerable and showing shitty sides of me, like showing either like parts of me that would normally be hidden, because that gets the other person to like open up as well. And then I don't know. I don't know that I have a list of questions, but I think getting to vulnerable places where someone, and for me, that's like a test. Like, can you get vulnerable? Can you share something about yourself that doesn't look perfectly rosy? Are you mature enough to be able to own that you have problems? What did you do wrong in your last relationship? Why did it end?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Like, and asking things that you're willing to share too. So I liked that one around like, what did you do that led to the end of your last relationship? Something like that. Or what role did you play in how your last relationship played out? Or, when conflict comes up, what's your natural tendency? Do you hide? Do you want to run away? Do you need to verbally process before you go to bed? Like someone, that would be me. And so these are the types of questions that are good to cultivate. And I think these are the same types of questions that, we end up revisiting in relationships too. And I think back to that question around like, should it be this hard? I just don't think that's the most helpful question, especially since it has the should in it. But I think it's It's relative to what, and what are you looking for, and what do you need to have different right now? And from that place, it gives you more of an opportunity to see possibility. The should leaves no room for possibility, because it's trying to put a yes or no on a situation that is absolutely not just yes or no. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think these other questions kind of lead you down a path of figuring out, is this something I want to stay in, or is it not?
Mm-hmm.
But with clarity around like, hey, I've got needs, they're valid.
Yeah.
I need to have them met. And can I do that in this relationship, or can I not?
Yeah. And I want to just acknowledge, because I think there is oftentimes, I have felt this way in the past. There are many people who find themselves straddling the fence in some area of their life. If it's not a relationship with an intimate partner, maybe it's straddling the fence around your job. And if you want to be in this job, or if you don't want to be in this job, and it can happen in many areas of life. And so that can be a very painful place to be. And so if you're there, you're not alone. Many people go there. And it's painful, and it's an opportunity to look at, okay, why am I feeling like I'm unable to commit fully to one side of the fence or the other right now? And that, I think, is a question that starts to open things up more. And I would even possibly refine that to, what do I feel like is preventing me from committing fully to one side of the fence or the other right now? And when we can go in and actually reflect, it helps us get to a clarity of mind that helps helps us make more wise decisions. When we can be in a place where we have clarity on our own, we stop lobbing over as many expectations to someone else and can address them for ourselves, or see the possibility of the next course of action.
I think that's where other people, having people that can counsel us, to coach us, or just listen to us, is very helpful, because sometimes we get stuck in that,
right?
In that, like, I don't have clarity why I can't make a decision. And sometimes other people can ask us the right questions to like help us get there, if we can't get there ourselves.
And I will say that, I do firmly believe that we end up in similar situations when we don't learn a lesson that our souls want us to learn. Which sounds a little woo, but it's what I believe. So then this is how we end up repeating relationship patterns. This is how we end up feeling like we've chosen someone different, and yet the same freaking things are happening. And until we have a shift, or until we get honest with ourselves, or until we make whatever the lesson is conscious, then that pattern repeats itself. And so one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves and our partners, whether it's a future partner that you want to be with, or a partner that you're with now, is the gift of our own self-awareness.
Yes. And we have to listen. A lot of it's right out there for us to see, but we don't listen. We don't. And oftentimes it takes our friends can say, like, she's doing it again. She picked the same guy again, same pattern, and we don't see it. So that curiosity, right? That self-curiosity, what am I doing and why? What patterns do I have? And what's pressing for completion?
Yeah. What has been a theme? And like, I wonder why. And getting curious about it. It doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. Certain things, you don't see for longer periods after, but making it a habitual part of life to get curious about yourself and allow yourself to grow. Because when you can accept that you grow and change, it becomes much easier to accept that a partner grows and changes, and we don't keep them stuck in having to be the exact same version of themselves for 30 years. That's not fun. It's like sometimes our families do this to us. We go to school, or we move out of the house and we start living life on our own. We become more independent. And then a few years later, you find yourself in your home for the holidays, or your home just for a visit. And all of a sudden, like, the stories that are coming out and the way that your family is talking about you feels like 5 versions of you from before, because they haven't seen the changes. They're not in the daily life, like right next door, like seeing everything that's evolving. And that can be a really hard place to be in. That's uncomfortable. We don't like it when it happens because it's not reflective of who we are. And so getting to the place where we can accept that we grow and we evolve and we change, and accepting that, it allows us to see that and allow that in other people more as well. And that's such a gift. Do you agree with this?
I do agree with this. I'm nodding for those who can watch the video. Nodding profusely.
And I think that is one of the things that we talked about early on, is like, and we're feeling out and assessing, and it's like, do I have to be the same person for years and years and years? Like, do I get to grow? And are you open to me growing? And then constantly that's why checking in with your needs is so important, because if your needs are changing in a relationship, that is so natural. Would you agree?
Yes. But yet I think there's almost an unwritten rule in most relationships. Like, you're not allowed to change.
Yeah.
So we have a contract. I signed up for this, and it better be this.
Right. Forever.
Forever. and that's not that realistic. And
right. So it's completely normal if your needs are changing. And it doesn't have to mean the end of a relationship. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it might mean that, like, okay, this cycle is complete. And I constantly want to normalize, if a relationship cycle is complete, it doesn't mean it's a failure. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to mean it's a failure. It can mean that the cycle is complete, and what new challenge needs to come up. However, it does not always have to mean that the relationship is ending or that the cycle is complete. It's an opportunity, though, to get vulnerable and to experience a deeper connection and share that part of yourself with the other person, and be willing to say, hey, I feel myself changing in these ways, and so my needs are somewhat changing. Mm-hmm. And going over and saying, again, like, can we talk about this? Like, here's what I'm feeling like I need now. Again, are you willing to help me meet this need? And if yes, great. And if not, okay, can we talk about a different way that I can get this need met? Mm-hmm. And when we do that, relationships can have so much freedom for us to be ourselves and not have to feel like we're walking on eggshells or hiding ourselves or not living true to ourselves. So those are painful states to be in. Absolutely. And on the flip side of that, maintaining that curiosity. Oh, I love that you brought this up. Keep going. Yes. We, especially in long-term relationships, we get to a point where we think we know everything about our partner. Mm-hmm. And there's some ease in that. Like, mm-hmm. Oh, I don't have to think about it. I know she likes this, and I can do this and I can't do that. But that doesn't allow for what we just talked about, and the fact that people change. And so maintaining some level of curiosity and learning and unpeeling layers of the onion and being interested in, ooh, you're changing. Something's changing. You're changing your opinion on this. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that. What does that mean? Yeah. Curiosity, I think, might be my favorite word. I think you know this. Yes. I'm so glad you brought it up. And I think one of the most powerful decisions you can make, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're looking for a relationship, or whether you're freaking rocking the single life and you just enjoy that, is a commitment to curiosity. A commitment to curiosity of yourself, mm-hmm. and of people you're in relationship with. It's such a gift, and it opens up so much more connection than assumption ever can. And so I love that you said that, because when we commit to curiosity in those moments, we get to understand the other person more. We mm-hmm. get to see them in a new way that we might not have understood before. And how connection inducing is that? Like getting to understand the other person more of who they actually are. It can be fun and it can be scary at times, but it's that making a decision to curiosity now and baking it into how you relationship in general, whether that's at work or at home.
Yeah. If that was a gift, like it's almost Christmas, we're giving gift. If I could give the gift of curiosity, like that's the gift I would give, because not only the impact on relationship, but just with yourself, curiosity about yourself. Why do I think the way I think? Why do I do the things? Why do I react the way I do? Why does that trigger? Why does that word set me off? If you're curious about it, you're open to learning about it. And that is the path to like then working on it, healing it, and evolving.
Yeah, that's the gift that keeps on giving. And you can make the choice to give it every day, and someone gets to experience that gift. And it's so powerful. I love it. So, which again brings me back to asking the better questions. And so if you find yourself plagued with a should, find a different question. And if you find yourself in mystical thinking and wanting to be outside the situation, give yourself the gift of curiosity. And rather than placing this judgment of like, should it be like this? Should it not be like this? Is this right? Is this wrong? Get more curious. I have personally experienced how transformative that can be over and over and over again. And so it's one of the recommendations that like I stand completely behind all the time and would sing until the cows come home.
I agree with this.
And so if you have things like this that are popping up, these moments where it doesn't necessarily feel safe to be yourself in front of the closed door, it's another opportunity to get curious. And I would challenge you to look for at least one person where you feel safe enough to be vulnerable and express some of those things. Because when we lock it behind closed doors, we can spiral in our heads in an unproductive, unhelpful way. And so if you find yourself there, one, I hope this episode was helpful. You're not alone. And we all have some version of that comes up. And two, if you want a community of like-minded people where you can pose those questions and not be judged, then come join us over at alyssapatmos.com/community. And we would be more than happy to invite you into the world over there. It's completely free and we can continue the conversation. Geoff, thanks for joining me on our couch.
Thank you. I had fun.
And thank you for tuning in. As always, there will be another episode next week, and I so appreciate you listening. You've just finished listening to another episode of Make It Mentionable with me, your host, Alyssa Patmos. If you're looking for more in between episodes, then sign up for The Peel. It's my free newsletter that gives tips for how to navigate whatever life dishes. And it's also the place where I share the juiciest of stories. To check it out, head on over to alyssapatmos.com/thepeel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.